This was everywhere because, of course, one person was caught on tape with a racist tirade. Let's jump into this.
The airport from his little brother, that little bitch Bonnet.
What? Black people.
I goes, what is with the Bonnet? What is with Bonnet? And I said, Bonnet thinks he's black.
Well, she's now stepped down from her position as president after this audio leaked of her on this racist conversation that she had about a fellow council member's son. So in this audio, she's heard discussing the plans to redistrict LA, because that's the first discussion here, and how she wants to, quote, take the airport from Councilmember Mike Bonin, who gets a lot of attention out here. So anyways, she then got personal about his child, who is a black kid, who he's adopted. Let's take a look at that audio.
Go get the airport from his little brother, that little bitch Bonnet.
What? Black people.
I goes, what is with the Bonnet? What is with Bonnet? And I said, Bonnet thinks he's black. That guy don't think he's black. I go, he thinks he's black. I go the same thing.
This kid is.
He goes, why are they so close?
He's from Massachusetts. This kid, the one here, this kid is the dad.
He's black.
Yeah. No, he's Latino.
Lo trae así during Black History Month, lo lleva al council y lo pone acá en el, remember? Lo trae, it's an accessory. When we do the MLK parade.
Just like when
they used to have those statues in plantations.
Yeah, like when Nori brings her Goyard bag or the Louis Vuitton bag.
Trae su negrito, like on the side. And lo trae, ¿verdad? You sit next to it, you don't know the other side.
So she jumps in and out of Spanish and English, and as they're all kind of talking, it sounds a little bit like, I was gonna say middle school, and I'll push up to high school, I guess. High school gossiping about someone you really don't like. As you saw, she called Bonin a bitch. And also, by the way, he's also gay, so there's connotation to her calling him a little bitch. And again, talking about his black son. She went on further to talk about him more, again, the son, and his misbehavior on the MLK parade float. And also the fact that he was even there in the first place. Let's listen to more.
For MLK, for the parade that Herb used to organize, and we need all the council who wanted to join Herb on the float, because he used to do a whole float to be nice. Bonnie would be like, hey, Nuri, are you going to the MLK? Well, Herb invited me, yeah, I'll go. Okay, I'm bringing whatever the kid's name is. I'm like, it's like the oddest thing. It's like black and brown on this float. And then there's this white guy with this little black kid who's misbehaved. Este niño has they're not even, they're not doing, the kid is bouncing off the effing walls on the float, practically tipping it over. There's nothing you can do to control him. Parece changuito. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm over here trying to parent this kid. I'm like, you can't do that. I said no.
So the big line here is, she said, parece changuito, which apparently means he looks or seems like he's acting like a monkey. She was going really fast through all the anger and the hate towards this kid who was misbehaving on an MLK parade float, which also had its own connotations with, so of course he brings his little black kid to the MLK float. I thought black kids and folks go to the MLK float all the time. But there's one more piece here, since we're piling all on top of Martinez and her words, and by the way, those other folks talking with her, she then has a solution for what she should do with someone else's kid who's misbehaving. And maybe many people have thought this, but she said it.
They're raising him like a little white kid, which I was like, this kid needs a beat down. Like, let me take him around the corner and then I'll bring him back.
Yeah.
¿Se me entiendes? Ven para acá.
It's a pinch.
So anyways, getting back to redistricting.
Yeah.
So she's been forced to step down. Lisa's the president part. Was overreaction on point?
I think the reaction is justified because this became public. I'm not gonna lie, I don't pretend to have some level of pearl clutching from the language used here. These people thought they were having a private conversation, and so they were being candid, right? Like this is how they might talk in their living rooms or in their kitchens when they're in private. I don't really pretend to be scandalized by any of this. What really, I think the parts of the conversation that caught my eye was this perception of a divide between black and brown in the city here in Los Angeles. And there is a real fraught dynamic to the black and brown communities of LA going back generations, right? And I think what's difficult, it's when, people like the councilwoman who they claim to represent. Like this idea that this woman represents all of the brown people of Los Angeles, I find that difficult to believe. I find that very hard to believe, but they represent themselves that way. And I don't know that they ever do anything to bridge those divides between the rank and file citizens of the community. But like the way she's saying is like, no, we wanna make sure the brown power is maintained here. But I always ask the question when people say black or brown, who? You know, like every single Mexican person or Salvadorian person in the city isn't from the exact same, financial background, neighborhoods, all of that stuff. Same with the black people, right? Like, I think there's a difference between Baldwin Hills and Watts, say. And when these politicians come out and they say, oh, I represent X, Y, and Z, I'm always cutting my eye at that, JR, where I'm just like, all right, what brown people does this woman actually represent?
Which ones does he talk to? Because look, there's that other line that has everyone so upset as well. Because she said, there's that, this is what Graphic One, you guys. Martinez also mocked Oaxacans and said, F that guy.
See?
He's with the blacks, while speaking about LA District Attorney George Gascon. So yeah, he's with the blacks. So again, what does that mean, and which black folks is she talking about? And with them, how? Meaning what for anyone else? Is that some kind of a problem here? Is this a society, or is this a separated version of a city? We already know how separated the city is. I don't think many people know that about LA. But she's also heightening that type of stuff. As a leader, is supposed to be doing something about this problem. Again, this is about redistricting that they were upset about. Graphic for you guys, because this was her, not only was apology or explanation, because this was how Martinez responded to all the drama. Because on Sunday, after the article was published online, Martinez did issue a statement apologizing for her comments, and she said, in a moment of intense frustration and anger, I let the situation get the best of me, and I hold myself accountable for these comments. For that, I am sorry. And also, the context of this conversation was concern over the redistricting process and concern about the potential negative impact it might have on communities of color. My work speaks for itself. I've worked hard to lead the city through its most difficult time. Now, later on in the show, we're gonna talk about Davante Adams, football player, who let his emotions get ahead of him, and he did something stupid and harmed someone. In this case, it's, I'm working really hard. Imagine, I just want us to, before we get to that next story, when we do that, there's a politician who says, I was angry about redistricting because I worked so hard for this city. Imagine if you're a football player and you do something physically to someone that you shouldn't do that to, has nothing to do with your anger. Look at the response people get from that. It's, oh my God, he should never even do this, never do that again, get this and get that and get the fourth thing. But in this case, it's, I work too hard, that's why I'm so upset. Imagine if his response was that. It depends on what profession you're in.
Yeah, and I think, that last graphic you showed, JR, is illustrative of what I was talking about. She mentions the guy being Oaxacan, which, if I'm not mistaken, Oaxacan people are known to be a more indigenous people to Mexico, right? And so that just shows you the divide right there. Like, it's not like this guy apparently isn't one of her type of Mexicans or one of her type of brown people, because he's a more indigenous type of homie, right? And that's why it's just like, yo, we gotta be careful when these folks sit up there and say, oh, they speak for the browns, or they speak for the blacks, or they speak for the whites, quite frankly. We gotta ask ourselves, which ones of those people from those identity groups that these people speak for?